If you've ever felt like the only way to close the sale or to get the customer is to actually lower your prices, you, like most businesses, are leaving money on the table. There's a famous psychology study on this actually, where a restaurant increased their tips by 23% just by changing how the waiter interacted with the table. They didn't improve the food, they didn't lower the bill, they just used a cheap mint that costs a fraction of a cent. But the mint itself wasn't the trick. The trick was the specific way the waiter handed it to the table. And I want to show you the psychology behind that 23% uplift, and I'm going to give you the framework you can use on your own landing pages, your own emails, and your own pricing structures to get more potential customers to say yes to you without you having to slash your prices. Now, you've probably been in a restaurant and seen that there's a bowl of mints sometimes by the restaurant door, and most of us assume that this is just a standard practice in the hospitality industry. When you're leaving, it's a nice touch on your way out to get the mint. But back in 2002, a group of researchers decided to test what happens when the waiters bring the mints to the table, specifically when they drop off the bill. So they ran a few different variations of this to see what would happen to the tip percentage. And this is what they found. In the first version of their experiment, the waiter drops the check and gives the customers 1 mint each at the table. And because of this, tips went up by 3%, which is a nice gesture, right? But it doesn't change your life. In the second version of the experiment, the waiter comes to the table, drops off the bill, and gives each of the customers 2 mints rather than 1. And tips went from 3% to 14%. Same meal, same service, just 1 extra mint. But the third version is where all the behavioral science, the persuasion, and the psychology happens, right? So in the third version of the experiment, the waiter drops the check at the table with 1 mint. He then turns around, starts to walk away, and stops. He then turns back to the table and says, actually, for you guys, here's another mint. And because of this, tips went up by 23%. Remember, the cost to the restaurant is absolutely identical in the last 2 scenarios, but in the third version, it completely outperformed the other 2 versions. Why did this happen? Well, this is a principle in persuasion called reciprocity. So humans have this hardwired aversion to social debt. When someone does something nice for us, we feel a physical urge to balance the scales. If you go to the pub with your friend, right, and they buy a drink for you, you feel this urge that when you get into the bottom of your drink and you're having a drink with them, you feel an urge that it's your round now and you need to buy the drink back. That's reciprocity, right? Most businesses actually get this wrong, and I see a lot of advice online actually about this, and the advice is not nuanced enough. So if you want that 23% lift, you need to understand why the waiter turned back so well, right? It isn't just about giving free stuff. So it comes down to this framework I call the mint moment. And it has these 3 different parts. The gift that you need to give to your customer needs to be significant, it needs to be personal, and it needs to be unexpected as well. So if we start at the first step, right, we start at significant. It has to be perceived as having value. It can't feel like junk you're just trying to get rid of that's going to benefit you. Second, personal. It has to feel like it was meant for that specific person. Has to make them feel a little bit special. And third, this is the real weapon, by the way, has to be unexpected. If a customer expects a bonus from you, if they expect some sort of value, if they expect things from you, it ends up as entitlement and they don't pay attention to it. If they don't expect it, it's a gift, which is what we're trying to aim for here. So the waiter turning back, when he turned back to the table, worked because it felt spontaneous. It felt like he was breaking the rules just for them when he said, actually, for you guys, I'll give you 1 more. So how do you apply this in your digital business where you can't physically turn back to a table? Let's look at your landing pages first of all. So usually on a landing page, your standard flow is, you ask them for the sale, you then prove to them what you're worth. If you think about flipping that order, if you place a diagnostic tool or a calculator right above your call to action, let them get a specific result or answer a burning question before you ask them to sign up, right? That's the significant part because it's a gift to them. It allows them to do something which discovers something about themselves, right? And once you get their result, you give them a bonus tip, specific to that answer. That then makes it personal to them. Remember, the second part is personal. Next, we need to try and make it unexpected as well. So after they download the resource, you surprise them on the thank you page with an extra gift. It could be a guide. It could be just some information. It could be a surprise video that's just for them. And you're giving the value twice before you've even asked for the dollar. Yes, it's more work for you. Yes, it is. But if you look at these things, it ends up as like a compounded extra for you when the customer ends up thinking about your business. If we look at emails, instead of sending a broadcast that says, buy my new offer, you send an email that solves a standalone problem. If you write something like, here are 3 templates you can use for your next project, that's the gift, right? It's not just a reward. Then you personalize it. You tell them exactly which template to use based on their industry. And for the unexpected twist, you add a PS that says, reply with your current draft, and I'll personally review 1 or 2 of them. That feels like the waiter turning back to the table. So the next time you make an ask, they're gonna listen because they have this social debt and it's there for them and they know it's there for them and they can feel the weight of it as well. And you can use this also on your pricing page. There is a place where most people panic and they offer a discount code, which is all good. You know, discount codes do show a bit of an increase. But if you don't do that and instead add the mint at the moment of decision, you know, you throw in a setup guide, an onboarding call, or a checklist, but you frame it personally. Don't just list it as a feature bullet point. Say, when you join, I will personally send you the exact setup I'd use for your specific situation. You're increasing the value perception so you don't have to lower the price. It's the same writing that you need to do if you weren't going to offer that, but you just tweak the writing a little bit and the person ends up feeling that they owe you something instead, so it helps with your sales. Now, quick warning. Reciprocity stops working the second it feels manipulative. If the gift actually is a trap, people will smell it a while away, right? The rule is basically you have to give something that is genuinely useful, even if they never buy from you. And the goal is to lower friction and build trust, not to guilt trip them into a corner and make them feel like, well, you know, I gave you that thing, now you better come and buy from me, because that feels slimy. And people don't want to, you know, do business with people that are slimy, right? So remember the formula: significant, personal, unexpected. Do that at the exact moment your customer is weighing their options. Now, reciprocity is powerful. There's another psychological level that pairs perfectly with it. It's the science of getting someone to say yes to a tiny step, which makes them psychologically wired to say yes to the bigger offer. A lot of businesses screw this up, by the way. So if you want to see the exact secret to this, it's one of the most powerful, persuasive things in behavioral science. It's how all humans work, right? It helps turn cold traffic into committed buyers as well. I broke this down in this video on the screen now. If you click that, I'll see you in that video. Take care.